Good evening. Welcome to the Smyrna Town Council meeting for our August meeting. We are ready to move into our meeting agenda. We did have Della Cothran that was going to speak for citizens' comments, but she has sent an email today asking to be removed from the agenda. And so we will call this meeting to order, and I am going to ask Vice Mayor Mark Adkins to give our prayer and our pledge by Miss Diane. And if everyone will please stand with us.
Ms. Bow? Lord, we come to you today with grateful hearts, Father, just for, even though the rain was severe today, we needed it badly, and we appreciate that rain so much. Father, we want to pray for our neighbors to the southwest of us and those to the north of us in Ohio and in El Paso, Father. There's been catastrophic incidents there, as we all know. We pray for those families, and we pray for the people that are cleaning that up and investigating it and so forth and so on. Father, we just pray for everybody whose hands are involved with that things go smoothly and give peace to the families. We continue to pray for our police and fire people here as they're out working diligently even today with these storms, and continue to ask for protection over them. Give us wisdom, help us to deliberate today in the way that you would see fit. And we ask forgiveness for everything, and including all of our sins. This is we ask in your precious name. Amen. Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Mark. Miss Diane? Miss Diane, you'll do roll call.
Councilman Cole?
Here. Yes, ma'am.
Councilman Morrell?
Here.
Councilwoman Peebles? Here. Councilman Short?
Here.
Councilman Sullivan?
Here.
Vice Mayor Adkins?
Here.
Mayor Reed?
Here. Item 3 is approval or corrections of the minutes of the July 9th, 2019 and July 25th, 2019 meetings. Jeff, are these in order?
They're in order, Mayor.
Any additions or corrections from anyone? Seeing none, do I have a motion to approve the minutes?
Motion to approve.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Minutes pass. Item 4 is correspondence or communications. Anything tonight, Brian?
None at this time, Mayor.
Awards and recognitions.
None at this time, Mayor.
Okay. We'll move on to item 6, which is our consent agenda, and these are items that are determined by the town manager to be routine and not necessarily needing discussion. Any of these items can be pulled off and voted on and discussed individually by any council member. I always like to read each item so the public as well as those here in attendance know exactly what we're voting on with our consent agenda. So item A is approval of the terms of and authorization for the mayor to execute a performance agreement with the Clayton Man Band relative to the barbecue festival. Item B is approval of the terms of and authorization for the mayor to execute an agreement with American Melody Carriages relative to the Front Street Christmas celebration. Item C is approval of the terms of and authorization for the mayor to execute a lease agreement with the Rutherford County Board of Education relative to the practice field area behind Smyrna Elementary School. Item D is approval of the terms of and authorization for the mayor to execute a contract with the Minnesota Children's Museum relative to the rental of the Amazing Castle exhibit for the Smyrna Outdoor Adventure Center. Item E is approval of the terms of and authorization for the mayor to execute a contract with the Minnesota Children's Museum relative to the rental of the dinosaur exhibit for the Smyrna Outdoor Adventure Center. Item F is approval of the terms of and authorization for the mayor to execute a contract with R&D Enterprises Incorporated relative to the negotiation services of Phase 1 and 2 of the Master Stormwater Project. Item G is approval of the terms of and authorization for the mayor to execute a contract with Morton Salt Company relative to the annual road salt purchase. Item H is approval of the terms of and authorization for the mayor to execute the annual report relative to the NPDES Phase 2 MS4 program. Item I is approval of the terms of and authorization for the mayor to execute a proposal with HDR relative to additional engineering design services for the Eden Springs West Extension Project. Item J is approval of the terms of and authorization for the mayor to execute a contract with Gresham Smith relative to the additional engineering design services and survey services for the Master Stormwater Project. Item K is approval of the terms of and authorization for the mayor to execute a professional services agreement with Brenda Walsh relative to the professional consulting and acquisition services for the Olive Branch Sewer Extension Project. Item L is approval of the terms of and authorization for the mayor to execute a professional services agreement with Randy Button and Associates relative to the professional appraisal services for the Olive Branch Sewer Extension Project. Item M is approval of the terms of and authorization for the mayor to execute an agreement with the Regional Transportation Authority, better known as RTA, relative to the Relax and Ride services for the fiscal year 1920. And item N is approval of the terms of and authorization for the mayor to execute a contract with Kirkland's Pest Control relative to the annual pest control services. These are our items on the consent agenda. Is there an item that a council member would like to pull off and discuss individually? Seeing none, do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
I move to approve consent agenda.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Consent agenda passes. We'll now move on to old business. Tonight, we have 4 public hearings. Our first one is a consideration of a resolution relative to a plan of services for property located on tax map 32, part of parcel 19.01. Kevin?
Yes, Mayor and Council, this first item is the plan of services for the annexation request, which is the very next item on your agenda. The annexation is approximately 24.81 acres. This plan of services is required for any annexation. It puts in writing the services the town will provide upon effective date of the annexation, which would be all services in this area, as this does lie within our water service boundary. The Planning Commission did review this and did recommend approval.
Okay. Questions for Kevin on this before we go to the public? Okay. This is a public hearing, so I'll go to the public to see if there's anyone here to speak for or against this item. Seeing no one, I will close this public hearing and go to the council for a motion.
I'll move to approve.
A motion to approve. Do we have a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Our next public hearing is a consideration of an ordinance relative to annexation and R3 zoning of property located on tax map 32, part of parcel 19.01, containing approximately 24.81 acres. It's requested by Tim Burns on behalf of John Burns. The property is located at 3791 Rock Springs Road, and it is a second reading. Kevin?
Yes, Mayor and Council, this is the annexation request. It is on Rock Springs Road. Property is addressed as 3791 Rock Springs Road. This portion of the property has no structures on it at this time, but the property that it is a part of is addressed at that address. Land use plan would support a low-density residential development here. Surrounding zoning is a mix of R1, R3, and the Gwynn Farms PRD in town, and RM in Rutherford County. Again, the town would be providing all services to this area upon annexation. The Planning Commission did review this and did recommend approval.
Questions for Kevin on this?
That map shows that essentially this property surrounded on 3 sides is not annexed?
That's correct.
Okay.
That's the remainder of this parcel.
Okay.
There is a portion of this parcel that has been annexed on the southern tip there that is where the R3 zoning is. That has been annexed, would be accessed actually from the south through the Buckingham Hills development.
So the part that is not being annexed is also all one parcel or multiple parcels?
There is all one parcel. There is two parcels here, these two here, that are, again, accessed through this parcel, but those are separate and would not be a part of the annexation. I believe both of those are under separate ownership from this parcel.
Other questions for Kevin? Okay, this is a public hearing, so we will go to the public to see if there's anyone to speak for or against this item. Seeing no one, I'll close the public hearing and go to the council for a motion.
I move to approve.
A motion, do we have a second?
Second.
Motion and a second, any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Item C is our housekeeping item, which is a consideration of a resolution and memorandum of ordinance 19-35 relative to the annexation and R3 zoning of property located on tax map 32, part of parcel 19.01. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Do I have a second? Motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Our next public hearing is a consideration of an ordinance relative to the rezoning of properties located on tax map 54, parcels 53.00, 54.00, 55.00, and 56.01. Tax map 55, parcels 29.01, 31.00, 31.01, and 31.02. And tax map 73, parcel 14.00, containing approximately 66.79 acres. It's requested by Sean Collins to go from R3 to PRD. The properties are located on Rocky Fork Amaville Road, and this is a second reading. Kevin?
Yes, Mayor and Council, this is a development request. It's property on Rocky Fork Allenville Road. It's about 2,000 feet southeast of the intersection with Morton Lane. Land use plan would support a medium-density residential development in this area. Surrounding zoning is the Amberton and Cedar Hills PRDs in town, and then RM in Rutherford County. This proposed PRD is for a 204-lot, single-family residential development. Access would be from Rocky Fork Amaville Road in 2 locations, as well as an extension of Inez Drive. We did include the pattern book that was submitted. The Planning Commission did review this, did recommend approval with a couple of conditions. The minimum house size will be 1,600 square feet, and Antique Avenue is not required to extend into the development. There is one dead-end street there. It is an existing county road, and that was approved without that extension.
Questions or comments? Okay, seeing none, this is a public hearing, so I'll see if there's anyone here to speak for or against this item. Seeing no one, I'll close this public hearing and go to the council for a motion.
I move we approve.
A motion, do we have a second?
Second.
Motion and a second, any discussion?
So this one is as far as the open space. I was looking at the pattern book on that, and really there's only one section of usable open space, if I'm not mistaken. Is that correct, Kevin? And that's on the top.
Yeah, they have several, well, they have some other, there's about, I think, 4 that are set up for different things.
Okay.
Let me get, if I can get my book.
But a portion of that is the retention, excuse me.
There are some detention ponds that are shown, yes.
Okay.
But there are, I think, and it's kind of color coded. You have some areas that are just kind of open space. You do have the kind of the top lot and the fire pit areas that are shown. Those are the kind of the green and the yellow, the darker green and the yellow. And then the lighter green is just kind of some open space. It's just not really necessarily an amenities. But that is, there are 5 different areas shown that are detention ponds, yes. That are a part of the open space. It's about, I think it's 11, no, I'm sorry, this one's 25, a little over 25 acres total. As far as what's left being undeveloped, that's detention ponds and everything.
Okay.
Kevin, the red dot being a cell tower, is that existing now?
Yes. That was actually approved in the county before this property was annexed, and they actually, when they actually came back through the process with our BZA as well, because they never got any kind of permits or anything from the county, so they had to come through us. But it has been constructed.
You know, I asked a question about that flowage area between the 2 detention ponds over on the right-hand side of it. I mean, does it, and as I recall, what you said was that they had decided not to do anything with that, but does it have any interaction with the detention ponds?
I don't know if we've got a design yet to know for sure. I think that easement is really there, or it's not an easement. It's a kind of a wet weather conveyance. It's there to carry water already. The detention pond, any of the detention ponds will have to be constructed to maintain or detain the water that would be created by this development. In theory, I guess, as we go through this, if this is approved, there could be, that could be where the overflow goes, or where it's released after it's been detained, could go into that area.
But by design, it wouldn't put any more on the surrounding property than what is
Than it-
already
than
going
it
there,
already is there,
correct?
correct, yes.
Is that another one that's over there in the spot to the left there? Is that a flowage also?
I think there is one, yeah, in that area where it's lot 23, 24. I believe that is correct.
Yeah. And is that probably the reason that you have the gap in the houses up in there above that? Is that
I would
between
say
9
so.
and 10?
Yes.
Okay.
Other questions? We have a motion and a second on the floor.
I'm
Any,
not voting or discussing.
anything, other comments or questions?
Yeah, the only comment I'll make is on first reading, I voted against this development for a couple of reasons. The amount of density out Allenville Road is already taxed, and I think adding this many lots in addition to other things we're considering is going to make it worse. And then this subdivision, which I know we've had a lot of discussion at our meeting yesterday and at the last meeting, but this subdivision does have 5-foot setbacks, which I still believe is just too tight. So those things hadn't been remedied, and they're still existing.
Other comments? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Opposed.
You good, Ms. Diane? Okay. We'll move on to our last public hearing, which is a consideration of an ordinance relative to the amendment of the Town of Smyrna Municipal Code by adding language to Title 15, Motor Vehicles, Traffic and Parking, Chapter 1, Miscellaneous, specifically renumbering Section 15-126 pertaining to prohibited uses of wireless telecommunication devices. This is a second reading. Jeff?
Yes, Mayor and Council, as we've discussed before, this ordinance basically mirrors the Tennessee law that was implemented on July 1st, dealing with the prohibition of cellular devices while operating a motor vehicle. This will allow our officers to cite them into municipal court instead of criminal court.
Questions for Jeff on this? Seeing no questions or comments, we'll go to the public to see if there's anyone here to speak for or against this item. Seeing no one, we'll close the public hearing and go to the council for a motion.
So moved.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes. We will now move into our new business for the Planning Commission report. And our first item is consideration of an ordinance relative to the rezoning of property located on tax map 34G, parcel, Group C, parcel 4.00, containing approximately 1.46 acres. It's requested by FS Smyrna LLC from C2 to PCD. The property is located at 1021 Sergeant Asbury Hahn Way, and it is a first reading. Kevin?
Yes, Mayor and Council, this is a rezoning request. On Sergeant Asbury Hahn Way, it also has road frontage on Nissan Drive, but does not have any access to Nissan Drive. The land use plan would support commercial development here. The surrounding zoning is all C2. This proposed PCD is for an automotive repair facility. It's about a 6,116 square feet building, does have 8 repair bays. Did include the plans that they had submitted. Planning Commission did review this, did recommend approval of it. This use is one of the uses that's no longer allowed in C2, so they went this route versus requesting C5. So.
Okay. Questions for Kevin on this?
I was actually wondering why they were doing a PCD, but I didn't realize that I'd forgotten C2 is no longer allow automotive. This is right next door to another automotive facility, right?
Very similar facility.
And it looks like it's almost going to be identical to the one by, on Sam Ridley, isn't it?
It's very similar, yes.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Okay.
Very similar. Actually, this one actually may look a little bit better.
Okay.
Yeah, the only question I noticed in their design, it looks like they're turning the building kind of sideways.
Yeah, the building, the ends of the building will kind of be on either end, facing the road. The long stretch of the building, actually, the bays will actually face north towards the other facility. The original plan, the bays were facing the other direction, and I think that neighbor, they're actually buying the property from that neighbor, and he requested them to flip the building, so that's what they've done.
So then it would be flipped from what's in our packet?
No, what's in your packet's correct.
Because it looks like the parking and everything is facing the other neighbor in the packet. But what I was getting at was the end that's going to face Nissan Drive. I assume you guys from planning probably discussed that.
Yeah, it'll be, yes, the end facing, the signage and all on the doors kind of be on more of the Asbury Hahn Way side, but yeah, they're both, it's basically all brick and stone building with a little cornice at the top, that I believe is EIFS. Everything else is brick and stone, other than the glass and the doorways and whatnot.
Okay.
Other questions?
Make sure I understood that right. So the front of the building is really going to face Sergeant Asbury Hahn Way.
Yeah, that's
And
gonna be
the
the
back of the
main,
building with the parking is going to face the Nissan Boulevard. Okay, I just want to make
yes,
sure.
that's correct.
Understood.
There'll be parking on the side of the building and then the Nissan side, yes, and on the other side, north and east.
Other questions?
Mayor, I would not be voting on this.
Okay. Do I have a motion?
I move to approve.
I have a motion to approve. Do we have a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. Any other discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
I oppose. One opposed.
Okay, and Jerry abstained. Okay, we will move on to item 2, which is consideration of an ordinance relative to the rezoning of property located on tax map 54, parcel 15.00, containing approximately 47.72 acres. It's requested by NVR, doing business as Ryan Homes on behalf of Sean Collins, to go from R3 to PRD. The property is located at 8916 Rocky Fork, Amabile Road, and this is a first reading. Kevin?
Yes, Mayor and Council, this is property on Rocky Fork Elmville Road. It's kind of on the opposite side of Morton Lane from the previous project. This is on the northwest side of Morton Lane. Land use plan would support medium density residential here. Surrounding zoning is RM in Rutherford County. The proposed PRD is for a development containing 148 single-family lots. Access would be from Rocky Fork Elmville Road in 2 locations. Again, I did attach the pattern book. The Planning Commission did review this, did recommend approval with a couple of conditions. One, the ordinance does require playground space and then 2 additional amenities, and asked them to revise those plans to reflect those requirements. And this is primarily for their information, just so they know that the sewer will have to come from off-site at Bankside through easements from the property to the east, and that they would not be allowed to have a sewer lift station here. Developer is here. I know this was one we looked at last month for a different development plan, and so if you have any questions, they are here to answer any questions you may have that I might not can answer.
Questions for Kevin on this? Do I have a motion?
I move we approve.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Any discussion?
I would like to just kind of point out, when this came through the first time, we had some reservations. A couple of things that have changed in this design from the last design that were, I think, compromises on the behalf of the builder. Several of us met with the builder and the developer and talked to them about our concerns. They reduced the lots, the number of lots, by about 28%, 27%, something I think is the numbers I came up with. They also made about 40% of the lots larger, eliminated the 5-foot setbacks. A lot of the houses with a 40-foot footprint will now have as much as 12 or 15-foot setbacks on some of the sides. So some of the modifications that they made show that they were listening and that they understood what we were concerned with, and I think it's a better product the way it's presented tonight. So I appreciate the changes, and I appreciate the developers listening.
Other comments?
Question. Kevin, the area between the R3 shown above in the map and this development here, what is all of that?
It's in the county. It's not in the city. It's zoned RM. It's primarily just woods right now.
Is it, got tough contours on it, or?
I don't think so. Not any tougher than anything else around it. I really don't. The property to the east is very odd shape. It borders this property on the east, but it also curves around and kind of dog legs and comes into this area. This is all one track. And then this is, some of this area up in here, well, actually not that part. It's a
Are
little
those
further
separate
north.
parcels there also? I mean, is there like
Yeah, these
three
are all
there?
separate tracks here, yes. These are all separate parcels. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, at least 4 parcels that border it on that north side.
Just wondering, looking ahead.
Other comments or questions?
Just to add that, from a community perspective, we're all masonry here, sidewalks, well-developed green space for community use. With the changes that have been made, it's a solid product, and it meets the needs of our community, especially when you look at price point and income averages for Smyrna.
Other comments or questions?
So Kevin, you said that they were going to change the amenities. Is this the one?
Yeah, they would have to add, at least add one more, because they said at least 2 amenities such as a playground, volleyball, et cetera. They'll have to, the playground is required, and then they have to have 2 more besides that.
But they haven't, that's still up in the
That's
air.
still, that has not been, given to us exactly what they're gonna do yet, no.
Okay. And then just, can you point out on this picture as far as where the detention ponds are on that?
Sure, let me see if I can, might show up a little easier on my copy I got here.
Can't find them on.
There's one here,
Not again.
and then there's one in this area over here, kind of on the east side.
Okay.
This area right here is one of their primary amenity areas. And I believe there is also another one here along the roadway at the end of that cul-de-sac.
It looks like
Okay.
there's some in the top near that roundabout, around that cul-de-sac on the left side.
Yeah,
of the
right here on
cul-de-sac.
this side, yeah, there's 3
No,
spots.
No, I'm talking about to the left of that cul-de-sac, down at the bottom right where you were just at.
Yeah, right here, yes, along the roadway, along Rocky Fork
Still
Elm
where I'm
Road.
at, but that's okay.
I'm sorry, those are the 3 I'm seeing.
Yeah, we're
Okay.
good.
Other questions or comments?
Stop
We
my
have a
desk.
motion and a second on the floor. Any other discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Not voting or discussing.
Motion passes. Our third item under new business is consideration of an ordinance relative to the rezoning of property located on tax map 27L, is that L, Kevin? Group D, parcel 4.00.
Yes, that's actually 27I.
Thanks. Containing approximately 18.57 acres. It's requested by Andrew Steffens to go from PCD to LCO and H1 to PRD with LSO and H1. The property's located on South Lowry Street. It's a first reading. I'm having trouble with my letters
Well,
tonight, aren't I?
this one's got a lot on it because it's PCD and PRD, but it's also in the Lowry Street overlay and the historic overlay. That's what the LSO and H1 stand for. They're not getting, that's still going to be the case, but the base zoning would be changing from PCD to PRD, essentially, is what the request is for. This property is on South Lowry. It does have additional road frontage on Sam Davis Road. Land use plan would support a downtown development, kind of a mixed-use type development, and surrounding zoning is a mix of R2, R5, C2, C3, and C4. So it's got a mix of several things. This proposed PRD is for development containing 308 apartments. Access would be from South Lowry Street as well as Sam Davis Road. He did attach the information that they had given us for the proposed development. The Planning Commission did review this. They did review or recommend approval 5-4 with 2 against, with several conditions. 1, that they submit a traffic study in compliance with the zoning ordinance. 2, that the developer shall add parking to the site in compliance with the zoning ordinance. The developer has requested an exception to the building height of 42. Basically, they want to have the buildings as tall as 42 feet, where 40 feet is allowed by the Lowry Street overlay. That proposed height is recommended for approval by the Planning Commission. And then the Lowry Street overlay suggests a maximum density of 12 units per acre for standalone multifamily projects. If it's a mixture of uses, that goes away, but for standalone multifamily, it is a suggested max density of 12. The proposed density is 16.59 per acre, and the proposed density is recommended for approval by the Planning Commission. The developer has representation here and would be happy to address any comments or questions that I might not be able to answer as well.
Yesterday at our special called meeting, we had some discussion on this. I think all of us here on the council want to see the revitalization of Lowry Street take place. We focus so much out Amable Road and out Sam Ridley Parkway, and it's time to come back and look at this area of town, and this could be an anchor for that whole revitalization. The only problem is we only get one shot at it, and we've got to make sure we get it right. And so I know at the Planning Commission level, you all had some concerns and had quite a bit of discussion. I know yesterday we still had quite a few unanswered questions. I know Brian has talked quite a bit with the developer back and forth, but I'd like for us to kind of have more discussion about some of the concerns that we have, and then if we choose to have the developer come up and answer some of those questions, or if the developer has questions of us, if you all are inclined, we will allow that. So I will open the floor for any concerns or questions that anyone wants to have.
Mayor, if I might, I was not at the Planning Commission meeting. Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you did something. But we did, when I did come back, we did talk, and we talked about some of the concerns that were out there. And I will tell you, I've been working with the developer since I've returned from vacation, and he has done very diligent work to try to resolve some of the issues, the parking. In fact, as you know, tonight on our agenda was a lady that wanted to come and speak against this. He has actually sat down with her in her house and talked to her about her concerns, and she withdrew her comments. So I think that bodes well that this developer is trying very hard to put a product down there that not only he would be proud of to own, but we'd be proud of to have as an amenity in our community. And we've talked about the economic development value for the downtown area and the revitalization. We've got to get people in that area to support the businesses. And we've seen that work in many different communities. When the people come, the businesses come. I would like to ask the consideration that at this time we allow the developer to show you his product from his view. And I think it will help us maybe understand some of the questions that we might have. And I think it'd be fair for us to give him the questions straightforward as he looks to try to develop this product.
Council good with allowing, suspending the rules and allowing them? Okay. Then we will ask the developer to come forward at this time, and if you will, state your name, address for the record.
Yes, good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, council members. My name is Kevin Gunther with Reagan Smith, and I'm representing Wood Partners, and I'm officed in Murfreesboro, and I'll let Andrew Steffens introduce himself as well.
Sure. Good afternoon, everyone. My name's Andrew Steffens. I'm the director of the Wood Partners Development Office here in Middle Tennessee.
We do appreciate this opportunity. We know that the downtown area, the Depot District, has been in everyone's hearts and minds for some time. So I was very excited to be part of this opportunity when Wood Partners said they were interested in this parcel. I will say that when they looked at this parcel, when they looked at this opportunity, a big part of that had to do with the fact that the context that it's in, and that is that they saw the sense of place that's starting to happen in the Depot District. They saw some of the investment into the retail, the entertainment, the arts that are happening, and that is one of the real key reasons they want to be here. So they understand that is important. They want to be part of not only integrating into that, but helping to expand and catalyze it into more opportunity. So I just wanted to make sure that you understood that this isn't a typical suburban apartment type of project. This is a unique project the developer is trying to bring into more of an urban context, one that they feel would be very well suited for young urban professionals as well as empty nesters, as well as people who are specifically looking for the environment that you have in the Depot District. So part of the context of that is also, of course, we've talked about expanding downtown and where does the footprint of the Depot District and downtown deserve to be, and we've always said the Lane property is an important part of that. And as you pointed out, this is that opportunity. I know that many times, I'm a planner, I'm a landscape architect, I love to put out vision, but I've always said what's going to happen is when you get someone ready to invest in your community, that's when you'll truly get a chance to shape this out. So we understand how important that is. I know that the developer is shared with us. They are investing $50 million or more into this project. This is not a small venture on their part, and they fully understand that that is something that needs to be, done in context with quality. And I'll let Andrew speak to the quality a little bit more in the future here, but I did want to point out too, Mr. Hercules, thank you for highlighting. We did hear from the Planning Commission. We heard about parking. We've addressed that. We've actually provided what your ordinance requires, plus 10 additional spaces on the site, because we know that that was important. We've also really looked at the architecture. We want this architecture to be something that is unique. We've looked at the Depot building as kind of our framework. That's where we started to pull that architectural feeling from. We've also, with this type of density, we've also provided 50% open space. I want to point that out. It's 50% open space, and there's a high quality of amenities with the pool, with recreational facilities, with a dog park, and with that open space. So that's part of what comes, when we're able to go with the type of product the developer is proposing. There's a high level of quality that's included. I hope you've had a chance to look at that packet that was provided by the Wood Partners, showing the other types of projects that they think are very exemplary of what would fit here. So I did want to give Mr. Steffens a chance to speak as well.
Sure, thank you. Again, good afternoon. So my name is Andrew Steffens, and I run the Wood Partners office in Middle Tennessee. Kind of like what Kevin said, I see this as a good opportunity, really for heads and beds and feet on the street for Smyrna. With Wood Partners, what you get is an institutional development company with institutional partners, some of the biggest financial players in the real estate world, Prudential, AIG, big insurance companies. So their requirement of me is that I deliver a first-class, high-end product. And with me, you get somebody that's lived in Middle Tennessee since 2003 and lived in Tennessee my whole life. My partner, Morgan Stingle, who's not here right now, she's a 7th-generation Middle Tennesseer. So you get a local developer who's going to be there to pay attention to how things are designed and how things are executed on, and pay attention to the needs of the town or the neighbors, which, to this point, we've really tried to work with the town of Smyrna and with anybody that has shown concerns to say, tell me what I can do to make this a good project for you, and let's see if we can do it. Example of that is the stormwater easement on the, I guess, east side of the project. I know you guys have some flooding issues with the soccer fields, and one of the first things I told Kevin to do is let's just stay out of that area and design this project around that so we can help solve that problem for the town or for the soccer community. Another example of that is kind of what happened at Metro Council with the parking and the elevators and some potential concerned neighbors. We quickly reacted to that and said, well, let's see if we can't meet in the middle, or let's provide all the parking that they might require, even though that's not something that we see that the market will demand, but that's fine. Let's just work with the community. I mean, that's kind of my point is, I'm not a big bad developer from Texas that's just looking to stomp all over the town of Smyrna or anywhere I develop. I've developed over 1,200 units in Middle Tennessee. These are my monuments. I'm not going anywhere. So I want them to be of high quality. I want to be proud of them, and I want to be able to drive past them and point them to my kids and say, your dad built that, and look at the impact that that's having on the people that live in there. The playground's full, the pool is full, and then in this case, look at the improvement that it's made on downtown Smyrna, the town square right there, which I think is a really unique. It's unique. It's a unique opportunity to really kind of breathe some life back into that. And I know from experience because I've done it. I did it in Germantown, in Nashville, where I built my first project. There's 14 new restaurants within a quarter of a mile from where I built my first project. And they all opened their doors about the time we opened our doors. 8th Avenue South, similar situation. There's new restaurants, new boutique retail, and it really just it puts an energy in the specific area. And you guys have a great, quaint little town center, but maybe some more people on the street might improve some of the uses and fill those shops up and fill those restaurants up a little bit more. Maybe bring on some different restaurants that might be a little bit more popular. That's who I am. That's what we plan to do. To get more specific in our project and our architecture, we love the idea that it's the Depot District, and we designed the building to nod to the Depot building. We had some. Yeah, I don't know if Kevin's got it, but I have it on my computer.
There you go.
Okay, so this is. The bottom picture is a rendering of where we are right now with the design. The top image is of Carriage Homes. There will be 6 or 7 buildings in the back like that, and then the one middle left is, that's a pool that Wood Partners built. I think that one's in actually Smyrna, Georgia, of all places. And then the right is an example of a club room that we might build at this project. Of course, those are not for this project because we're not that far in design, but just to speak to the quality, there's no vinyl siding in our projects. We use cementous panel, we use brick, we use stone, and you can see how the bottom image kind of nods to the Depot building with the brackets and the roof line and kind of the massing of the building. As far as quality interior, it's stainless steel, it's granite countertops, it's tile backsplashes, tile bathrooms, clubhouse amenities. As Kevin mentioned, you'll have a fitness center, a business center with free computers and printers and fax machines. You'll have a resort-style saltwater pool, dog park, playground. So, again, we're going after what I would think would be the renter that you want. Maybe with some disposable income that could spend some money at a coffee shop or a restaurant. And, really in closing, we want to build a great project here. It's a unique opportunity for, I feel like, everybody at the table. So, with that, I'll open it up for questions. Happy to answer anything I can while I'm here.
Kevin?
Which Kevin? Our Kevin or that?
Well, kind of maybe a two-phase, and it may end up being both of you. Number one, how do you see this project working in with the Lowry Street overlay? And from where the apartments are, how are we going to get folks from the apartments out onto Lowry Street?
Well, I think this is pretty consistent with what we looked at it with the overlay as far as the building architecture, the overall layout. We talked a lot about streets and having streets kind of not having just one big building or whatever. Even though these aren't public streets, they are broken up into 6 different buildings that have, 6 larger buildings and then the carriage houses. So you have that kind of broken up. You're going to have sidewalks along Lowry Street as well as out to Sam Davis Road as far as for people to walk into the downtown area. I think it's pretty consistent with what we had looked at for the Lowry Street overlay.
How do you see the timing of this construction and what we're doing with TDOT as far as hardscapes, landscapes, and of course I'm thinking sidewalks and the pocket parks and things that we're working on there?
He can speak to specific to his development schedule, to what they had talked about with us. It should, in reality, a lot of it could all be happening at the same time and coming online roughly the same time with regards to what we're doing with the phase 1 of Lowry Street, as well as what CSX and not CSX is doing, but TDOT is going to be doing with the sidewalks across the CSX tracks. And then also, this project, I think they're all going to, in a lot of ways, could be either finished at the same time or within 6 months of one another, that sort of thing. So I think it could all kind of come together at the same time all together.
Does this photo here have the additional parking included?
Yes, yes.
I know parking was a concern that you all discussed, and you said it's got our minimums plus 10.
Yes.
Does it now meet the Lowry Street recommendation?
There's a couple things which they requested exceptions to, which are allowed under the ordinance that they can do that. One is the height. They want to have it 42 feet instead of 40. The other is the density. We have a suggested density for standalone multifamily at 12 per acre, and this is about 16.59. We also talked a lot about mixture of uses in that area. This is an all residential project, but this is, I think it's not it wasn't a mandate that it be a mixture of uses, but that was kind of something that we did talk a lot about that through there. Not just this parcel, but several parcels in town along Lowry.
What is the parking per bedroom ratio now?
It's 2 per unit, but I don't know per bedroom.
I'd have to recalculate that, to be honest, Councilmember Cole. So we have 2 parking spaces per unit, and approximately 57% of our units are 1 bedroom. So we're at a pretty high margin per bedroom. And then we've got an additional 10 spaces with it.
Sure, Councilman Cole, just my experience in developing apartments, what we typically like to target, because the last thing that we want is a development that's underparked, because then people will move out, is 1 per bedroom. Now, that doesn't meet you guys' code, and we said, okay, well, let's fix that. So I don't know exactly what the count is. Where we feel like we need to be from a marketability standpoint is 1 per bedroom, and now I think we've added maybe 30 or 40 more plus the
Actually,
10 perhaps?
Actually, we added 80 spaces plus 10.
So,
In the box that's shaded here on this picture in the upper right, it actually says 1.73 spaces per unit. That we just can't see it because it's so fine, but
That was the original.
Right, I apologize, that's an old
So
number.
the text wasn't updated, but the drawing was?
Yes.
That is correct.
Okay.
I can speak a little bit too about the connection, if I may. The thing that we really wanted to do was bring activity to Lowry Street. So all the units that face Lowry Street actually have egress to the street from there. They looked at really putting the office and the community center and the club and the fitness area, that's all up at that front corner of the building with glass-plated windows. They want to bring activity to the street. So in addition to that, we really believe that there's a really good chance to connect to the soccer park, as was mentioned, through that open space, if that's something that's needed. We've given room for that, and we know that that might be something the town really wants to do.
yeah, we would be willing to study that and try to figure that out with the town, whether it's we dedicate the land or, I mean, we've already left room over there on the right side of the plan to connect to the soccer fields. How exactly that gets executed between the town of Smyrna and me and my shareholders, I think let's just figure it out, which is why we're not showing it on the plan. But we are willing to sit down and try to figure that out with you guys.
That's one of the things that I've given a lot of thought to is, of course, you're butting right up against the soccer park right there. But then by the same token, we also have this major stormwater project, which is going to go through the same path. And, I would just think that there would be some way that we could possibly run the walking trail, even maybe from Lowry Street all the way back there. I mean, like I say, I don't know what the full ramifications of the stormwater plan are, but recognizing the fact that y'all have left a lot of property over there, I could see where that would be, would be something that the citizens themselves would be interested in, much less the residents of this facility.
I couldn't agree more.
Right.
That was something that was a huge discussion yesterday, so I'm glad to hear that you're open to that.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Well, one of the other things that came up was the elevators. You mentioned, younger families and empty nesters. We have quite a few senior living facilities in town, and I heard just recently that there's some of them with 75 to 100 people on the waiting list to try to get into those. So this type of living doesn't just fit those empty nesters and those or young families or young executives, right? It would potentially fit some of our senior living folks as well, as long as lower level elevators, those type of things. So I know that you guys had agreed, I think, to put elevators in at least building 1 and 2, and I guess our question is, or my question is, could we put elevators in all 6 of them? I think it opens up more of the units for those senior living as well, and it doesn't, if it may be a younger person in there for the first year, but the second year now that apartment could be a senior living person. It just opens up more options for the turnover that may or may not happen.
Sure. Councilman Sullivan, I am more than open to continuing to study putting more elevators in the project. What I will tell you that will, as we discuss it, will come up is right now, I mentioned institutional development and institutional partners. We have a partner on board that's an institutional partner, actually one of the biggest real estate funds in the world. Once I start making a lot of tweaks, it could run them off, and I may not be able to get anybody else back, and this could become a non-institutional deal. So that being said, I'm happy to look into it and see what it does to our development and our numbers and how they react to it. I will tell you, one of the things that they do is they'll go to the comparable properties. So our two main comps probably that are new are Copperfield, which is over by Nissan, and then Town Center, the one out by the interstate. Those are the two nicest properties in town. That's who we're going to be competing against. Neither of those have elevators, so they're going to say, well, why do we need an elevator? So I'm happy to put two in. I'd like to study it and try to figure out how to appease that. Unfortunately, right now, I can't give you a definitive answer there.
But those, the two elevators gives 55% of the units are
That's right.
accessible.
Yeah, actually,
That's the
56% of the units are accessible by ground floor or elevator, so it's more than half. And we do commonly see and develop this way where the two front buildings are more urban feeling, which is exactly what you guys want and what we want too. So we think putting the elevators in those are probably a little bit higher rent, and a little bit more special to some of the seniors perhaps. And then, diversity is important to us, so we want to be able to provide a living experience, maybe not at quite as high of a cost to somebody that maybe can't pay for that elevator premium. So just something to think about as we talk through it, but again.
Yeah, that's a fair comment, but the two properties that you mentioned were developed some time ago.
Right.
And the latest apartment complex that we did develop, we did require elevators. So we are being consistent with what we've approved, at least in the last 3 to 5 years. Just so you're aware of that. So when
That's the Southern Building Group?
That is right. That's the
Okay.
one right there by the hotel.
And actually, we didn't require them, they offered them.
That's right. But
So
that's really the kind of the direction we're going.
So their product is 4-story, I believe.
I believe so.
So that's a little bit of the difference. In 4-story development across Middle Tennessee, by code, you actually have to have elevators.
Understand.
They're
But
3-story.
But if they had come in with a 2-story without them, it might not have gotten approved, is all I'm saying. It was a factor.
Understand.
Point of clarification, we didn't require, they brought that plan in.
Yeah, Mark just said that,
I
yeah.
just want to make sure.
Yeah. Either way, though,
Well, if it were
if it,
required for 4-story, that probably is why they offered it.
right, but if it had been a similar like product, it may not have gotten approved. My point is, what we last approved did include elevators, no matter how they got there. And it was a part of the conversation when we were voting to approve it, was that these are not external entry, typical stairwell type apartments. These have elevators and lobbies, and that was part of our conversation. So whether it's 2 stories or 4 stories, that was factor of the conversation. And that's, I mean, to be frank, what we wanted, or at least what I think we wanted in this area, was owner occupancy. So for us, at least for me, I feel like we're kind of, we're bending, we're negotiating with what we can get, and I understand that there's nobody standing next to Kevin offering condos right now. So we're looking at what is in front of us and what is the option.
Right.
But, to your point too, we're trying to, it's not exactly what we want either.
Right.
So we're trying to find the common ground so we can get to the same place.
I appreciate that, and I'd say let's continue to have that conversation. It sounds like we need to maybe reconfigure a couple buildings, the interior, not the exterior, see where we can fit them in, and take that to our partners and continue to study that with them and see if they want to remain in the project.
Okay. I will tell you, the elevator discussion was another big topic of discussion. And just like you talk about on behalf of your investors, we've got 50,000 people that we have to answer to as citizens of the town of Smyrna, and we want to make sure that we're bringing them a product that they can be proud of, whether they're living in that or not, because I will tell you, probably almost every one of them will drive past it at least once during the week, and we want them to be proud of it, and again, to kind of kick off this whole downtown revitalization. So we talked about parking, we talked about elevators, we talked about connection to the park, ingress and egress. I know that was another big discussion that you all had in regards to Main Street, in regards to Sam Davis Road, also there on Lowry Street. So do you all want to address that a little bit?
Well, we've certainly committed to doing a traffic study. We know that's, looking at that level of detail is going to be needed, and we know that may shape some things out. I know that we've also looked at the impact on that property on Sam Davis, and if there's any way we can pull that entrance further to the west and the south, we're certainly open to that. We're open to the lanes in and out of the property that need to be added. I think all that, quite honestly, is something that we have to digest within the design parameters of our traffic analysis, which we're more than happy to pursue in detail.
Questions?
I just know that today, sometimes, I just tend to go back down there frequently. Sometimes when I turn left, I can't get out, I can't even get in the other lane. And then much less even when I get down to the intersection of Sam Davis and Lowry, going left is a problem. And I just, it just strikes me that having a third entranceway into the complex using Main Street would make it somewhat easier, because it increases your capabilities for stacking on Sam Davis Road.
So you're suggesting that Main Street might extend into the circulation of our property? We're very open to that. I think we were concerned about, the impact on the adjacent neighbors, and so once again, we're open to looking at what is the best traffic scenario we can provide. I can't tell you that at this stage, just because we haven't been able to generate all that data, but we know that has to be a process. We're open to that connection. We're thinking it may not be ideal, but there again, that's...
What kind of thought process did y'all have on that?
I think, a lot of it is just the element of adding that traffic to an existing single-family resident. Adding traffic to that single-family residential on Main. And
How many homes are on Main, Kevin, would you say? I know there's the little apartment.
Not even a dozen, I don't think.
There's probably 8 or 10 parcels. The west side, the border of Sam Davis Road is on commercial, and you have a couple of those parcels that are businesses, and then you have some residential on that side, and then everything on the other side is all residential. I think till you get up to Maple Street, the house at the corner of Maple and Main is commercial. So
I've not even been on that road in years. Is it even, I was going to say, is it?
There's probably, 6 or 8. Kind of, you have one quadruplex and then 4 or 5 houses, something like that.
And I had leaned over and asked Mark while you guys were discussing, but traffic study was part of the design, and you guys are, I assume, okay with performing that and the adjustments as required?
Absolutely, always.
I think that's important to know too, because if traffic study comes back and says Sam Davis Road needs more stacking or something like that, then that's kind of what I could see for sure. Because right now you can only get 2 cars in the left turn lane right there. That's probably the only, just getting out of that Sam Davis Road entrance into that stop sign area is probably the only major thing that I'm seeing. I mean, obviously people making left turns on the Lowry is always dangerous, so you're going to have that problem no matter where you go. And there is the red lights, down a block or 2 down here, which is ideally what we would hope this would funnel to, right? People would find that it's easier to go down to Washington or go down to some of the other red lights that already exist, but you just never know.
Did we answer your question, Councilman Cole? Did you feel like we answered your question?
Yes and no. I mean, when it gets down to it, it's like, I guess something that gives me cause for pause, and it's not just this one, but frequently things come before us, and it's like we're going to do a traffic study. Well, I mean, we've already approved it, and then here comes the traffic study. We don't get to peruse what the traffic study says, to take that into consideration in our decision. And this is one where it seems to me that it is a little bit more, has more impact, I guess.
I think we know that no matter what this property is, it's going to create an issue getting out and turning left, right? I mean, we know that. So I don't want to disagree necessarily, but I think the Main Street option is a little bit questionable from my point of view, because we're just taking them out another second back way. and then circling back around, you know,
But I
so
mean,
it's
the
an
safety
option.
part that makes
Yeah.
a difference there.
I kind of
mean,
wish,
because look at coming out of the bank. You know, you've got all these people coming out of the apartments, and then you're coming out of the bank, and I mean,
Yeah.
who gets to go first? And
yeah, I kind of wish there was a way to get out somewhere in the back. You know, I kind of wish that, because if there were, anybody that doesn't necessarily need to get into town could then go out the back, the post office, that, you know, that kind of thing.
Maybe somehow cut over to Sam Davis Road.
Yeah. But I
The
don't-
other
I-
side, by the school,
I'm not an
that's my
engineer and I
opinion.
can't design that in my head here, but. I've talked with several folks on this, several people. I've even reached back out to some of those people who I've not spoken with directly since you reworked this, but tell me, I know that, Brian, you mentioned Miss Della there that lives on the corner. I think thought I saw her here. There she is. I don't know how that discussion went, and to me, that's important. Do we know anything about that?
Sure. Yesterday, I went and sat in Miss Paulette's living room and with Miss Della and Miss Paulette and listened to their concerns. And I can't say that anything that she said didn't make perfect sense. So I called Kevin and I said, we need to take these into account. Her two big ones being, we need to pull the entry drive on Sam Davis away from her house. I don't blame her. I wouldn't want it there either. And she sees a lot of value in that guardrail because somebody's run into her house.
Yeah, they have.
I'm gonna, I don't want to create that
She'll
problem.
ask you, the reason that's there is for that very reason.
Right,
and
so-
there's a purpose for that guardrail.
I
Is that
cannot,
curve, right?
I cannot blame her, and I told her that we would fix that problem as well. We can't do one without changing the other because the guardrail is probably where the driveway is going to want to go.
Well-
But we can keep people from hitting her house, so.
And I don't want to dive into one person necessarily,
Right.
their needs, but that's somebody I've dialogued with. a
Sure,
little
sure,
bit.
and look.
And that is important. We, as a council, have to make a decision on what we feel is going to work for the town and for the citizens, and they're the people that ask us to make those decisions, I guess, so.
I understand.
So based on what you're saying just then, you're saying that you're gonna be moving that exit down closer to the bank,
Potentially.
potentially?
Well, if you stand in this green field right here, and you look at this plan, where we have this entrance, entrance and exit feels pretty close to her house, so.
Show her house on there if you don't mind.
Right here.
Yeah.
So what she and I talked about is potentially moving it down, and still, so creating some kind of separation here, be it landscape or privacy fence that we would obviously pay for. I think another concern of hers is parking and her, parking where she's parked, even though it isn't her property, she's always parked there, and hey, let's try to figure that out. So whether that's we dedicate the land to her or her a parking pad, again, I'm willing to try to figure it out with whoever has an issue. So, in order to keep Ms. Della's parking and her entrance to her house, we pull the driveway down a little bit and then put some kind of wall that will protect somebody that accidentally is going too fast, and then landscape or a privacy fence to create a sense of separation for her. So,
Does that then offer you any traffic study concerns, putting it closer to the curb?
well, we don't have the traffic study yet.
Right,
So,
and I think that's part of some of our concerns.
Yeah,
That's what
I was actually thinking that it may make it easier, or an option may be to talk to Pinnacle about merging the two entrances into one, right along the edge of their property and your property, so there's only one ingress, egress in the middle of that curve instead of two. Something like that.
Right, a shared driveway is
Yeah.
something. Here again, we're open to that. I don't have the design solution yet,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
we're open to.
I understand.
those
I think we're kind of
ideas.
getting in the weeds a little bit with that, but I'm just suggesting
It's
that
not
as
a
you
bad
move it
idea
closer,
to
it
look
might
at.
actually, might make it easier to do something like that.
Right.
This may, as a former teacher, where does a bus stop go for a project like this?
Yes, we ran truck routes through there.
Yeah, so that's right, I remember that exhibit. So we have designed this roundabout for a bus to be able to come in and stop at the roundabout there.
Will the county do that?
Will the county go into I don't know the answer to that.
I've been told they won't, but I've seen them do it, so.
I've seen them not. So, you know,
I
I
know
waited
that
on
they-
one coming over here today, and it was in front of Ashley Grove.
I know that they do now the apartments that are behind Target, because that road that goes from industrial up to Target is a private road. That is a private road. They go up, pick up at the roundabout there for those apartments. So I know that they do.
Otherwise, picking up on Lowry would be catastrophic.
Well, and
It
so
would
we're
need to
picking
be
up on Sam
internal.
Davis.
Either one.
Either one.
It would need to be a pickup internal for safety purposes, certainly. So, I mean, I know they have done it. I'm not saying they always do it, but I know I have seen them do it. And in that case, one specific case, I know that's how they designed that one.
I know Steve mentioned a few minutes ago, and I wasn't quite sure on the answer, when you were talking about the apartments, and is, none of these, my understanding, are going to be for sale, is that correct? It's no townhomes or anything, it's all strictly 100% apartments, is that correct?
That's correct. They'll all be for rent. Wood Partners is one of the large apartment management companies in the country. We have a lot of experience. We manage over 30,000 units all around the country, so we'll be self-managing these, and they'll be for rent.
Now I know you talked earlier about how many projects you've worked on in the past. Are any of those, are all those 100% apartments, or some of those?
That's correct.
Everything that you guys have done?
That's what I specialize in, yes, sir.
Okay. Because again, that's what I hear. In fact, I was talking to some people the other day, said, oh, here comes some more apartments. And, I mean, not that, I think, I like the idea of putting something downtown, I really do. And I wished it was something people could purchase as well.
Yeah. Well, I think if there was a big demand for that, I wouldn't be standing here today. Somebody would have already done that. What there is a demand for is apartments. My two comps, Copperfield and Town Center, are both 98% occupied. The whole country is shifting a little bit toward rentals these days. So it's, it's my job to know what will work, and this will work.
Okay. What size units are they? I know there's 1, 2, 3 bedroom, but what, as far as square footage, what size are those?
I think we're about 1,000 feet is our average.
On all three, or
all three.
yeah,
That's
a
right.
3
Well,
bedroom is going to be the same as a 1 bedroom?
Oh, no, I'm sorry, that's the average. Yeah, so
Okay.
we have 3 bedrooms up to 1,800 feet,
Okay.
and then 1 bedroom.
There's only 8 of them, as I recall.
That's what I heard that night as well.
8 of them,
That's
about
right.
160 something one bedroom.
In the bungalows, right?
Total, 8 3-bedrooms.
Yeah, but they're in the bungalows, they're not in the main.
I could pull it up for you.
I think it was 160 something single bedroom, 8 3-bedroom, the rest were 2.
Yeah, I wrote 163 1-bedrooms, 137 2-bedrooms, and 8 3-bedrooms.
If you give me a minute, I can find out.
Well, Andrew's looking at that too. I'd like to speak a little bit to the whole idea of apartments, and he tapped into it. This is a different type of residential opportunity I believe we're bringing to Smyrna. It's not something that's in the marketplace now. So we understand, that the idea of apartments is not always something that people get real excited about. But I do think we're excited about bringing in a different type of lifestyle apartment that is another residential opportunity for Smyrna that is not necessarily offered right now.
And there will be no commercial property on that, is my understanding, right?
That's correct.
I said commercial, I mean retail, I'm sorry, retail.
That's correct.
We talked about that in planning, actually, and they feel like that's not a good model.
Yeah.
And I kind of get where they're coming from with that. My question wasn't so much about the live-work, having a shop underneath apartments. It was more about these frontage buildings being total retail instead of apartments. I questioned that, but I don't think that was something that they would want to entertain. One of the challenges we have on Lowry is there's a lot of grandfathered properties there, as you well know. We can't do a whole lot there, but the way I look at some of this, and I thought about this even today, was, one side of Lowry Street, it's hard to attract anything to come in there. So when we're talking about attracting restaurants and things like that, we're limited to one side. There's no restaurant that could come and border those railroad tracks. Just, they can't. There's no parking. So that's another part of how I see this is we're trying to tract half the road. You follow me? And what parcels are there currently that might match up to business and come in and so, yes, we want the landscape to change there. We all want that. It's been something that we've, when we hired Brian on to be our town manager, we sat with him individually and told him, this is our goal. We want Lowry Street to start being attractive, and we want people to come there with business. And, but on the flip side of that, and I shared this with you in the Planning Commission, is we also have our citizens to answer to who will, if they don't follow what we are trying to do, they only have one opinion. And we've got to live with that. So I want you all to understand that I think everybody up here, I'm not speaking for them, but I think everybody up here has the same goal. And that is to bring some kind of quality product over here. My rub has been the word apartment. That's where my rub has been, and I shared that with you guys when you were here last time. So I've struggled with this. I'm going to tell you, I've struggled with it back and forth. It's one of the hardest struggles I've had because I really want to draw a crowd down there. We've got friends and businesses that live down there and operate down there. And our main goal is to bring life back to Lowry Street. That's our main goal. Sam Ridley Parkway is the attraction. That's where everybody goes for their business. And we really want to bring some of that back into town. So that's it.
So what would the friends that you have that have businesses around this, what do you think they want?
Well, I would think that they would think this would be a supportive thing. But Councilman Sullivan even pointed this out a few minutes ago. Apartments are more of a transient group. I mean, they're going to be there a year or two or three. I don't know what your averages are. And so they live there, they come home. If you've got the quality of product there on site to entertain themselves and relax, I don't know how many people will cross that highway without some way to do it. I don't know getting in their car and driving across Lowry is going to make a lot of sense to them. It's more walkability. Therefore, I think we're trying to treat one side of the highway. And I don't know if kind of what you were saying a while ago.
Well, we may have a little bit of a miscommunication because part of what I have convinced Prudential, our investor, in this situation is that we will connect to the town center with sidewalks.
To where?
Down to,
Okay. Boy, you got a long connection in front of you.
well,
Okay, yeah.
I'm sorry.
Washington.
And then there will be a pedestrian walkway across Lowry, and then
I think that was discussed, but
soon to be a pedestrian connection across the tracks. So I hope that, I've seen some of the plans that could potentially happen, especially with the linear park. I mean, our position on that is to completely market toward those elements of growth that you guys are, I kind of look at it as we're all shareholders here. We're all trying to do the same thing, and that's revitalize. So if I can't connect to that, that's probably a problem. But
Mark's talking about, the business aspect of it, but, for many, many years, I mean, I'm sure you understand the fact that used to be like a cedar mill down there, and it was one of the, early industries in Smyrna, and of course, it went away, and everybody has looked at that property for many, many years. And they always will ask us, well, what's going to happen there? What's going to happen there? And over the years, there've been a couple of different projects which were brought in, and we never felt like they were right. And they weren't. I don't believe that they were.
yes, sir.
And I have to say that when I guess it was Brian probably that first said, look, these gentlemen want to bring in some apartments. It's like, apartments, you're out of your mind. And I think that will be probably the first reaction of most of the people in the community. But, as we are required to do, we've listened, we've thought about what you've got to say, and I think I understand what it is that you're looking at doing there, and then also the concept of if we want to revitalize our downtown area and keep it on the track that it's going on. Because, I mean, it wasn't that long ago that it was a place where you really had no reason to go there. Businesses were drying up and going away. And between, us and the community itself, I think we've done a darn good job because, look what you're bringing us here.
Right.
Something which will be a companion product to what we've already done. But you see, we've got to sell the community on that.
Well, I understand that, and I will say that we have spent some time in the community. In fact, we didn't spend a lot of time today, but we did, in just a few hours, grab 17 signatures that would support this project. So, and that was just in, 2.5, 3 hours.
Well, I think that, what you're doing here is probably something which does complement all of the plans which we have made for Lowry Street and also for the downtown district itself. But, there's just a couple of little tweaks to it, and I feel like I can get behind it, with those tweaks.
Well, hopefully you feel like, I'm here to talk about the tweaks. And that's,
Well, and I guess the tweaks we're talking about with elevators, with connection to the park, with ingress and egress, those sorts of things. What is your timeline? Because, we're looking at first reading here. So what is your timeline to be able to come back to us with those questions answered? Is it 30 days?
I wish it was faster, honestly. 'Cause that's,
Well, we can't have a second reading until, for 30 days anyway, so.
I got to be honest, I'm not 100% sure how the process would work. I think we could probably figure that out faster. So,
I think the issues of connection, that's certainly something we can address. Then further discussion about the elevators is certainly something we can address in that time frame. Getting a traffic analysis done by that time would be difficult. So we
What
can.
is the timeline for traffic analysis?
Well, we've got to go out, now that school's in session, that's one thing we had to wait for. We can go out and get data within a couple weeks, and then that data has to be processed, and it's going to be typically about a 6 to 8 week process. We could look at certainly tweaking the entrance and just exploring what could happen there, but getting a traffic analysis by the time of next reading would be difficult, the way it stands now. But we can commit to that wholeheartedly. It has to be part of site plan and staff and be in full compliance with what's recommended in that study.
yeah, I think our goal would be approval subject to some of the topics that we talked about. Our development being in compliance with whatever the traffic study recommends. Some sort of solution to Sam Davis and some of the other kind of issues I would say that we're still discussing.
I did want to point out one thing, and again, I may be looking at old numbers, but on this document to the left, the little box that we can't see actually does have your bedroom, bathroom breakdown.
I've got it right
And
here.
it's showing 32 3-bedrooms.
Yeah, I've got 32
Not
3
8.
beds, 113
Okay.
twos, and 163 ones.
Okay, so it is the same number. So I just wanted to clarify that it's 32 3-bedroom units, and they're not in the carriage homes. They're in the main buildings, right?
Right, correct.
So I just wanted to make sure that we all had the same information, because I think we thought there was only 8. That was only one type of 3-bedroom.
Sure. And I'm happy to recirculate an updated copy of that with our current mix.
I was just inside, pull into it off of Sam Davis right there. What is that pull off to the right there? Is that dumpsters or
Dumpsters.
something?
That'll be for trash
Okay.
collection.
Of course, that would be screened landscape.
I will tell you, we actually only got the drawings yesterday, just because of some internal issues. But prior to seeing the drawings, I was not excited at all. After seeing the drawings, I do agree that your product is a different caliber of product than what we've got in town. And actually, you referenced a couple of your other properties that, down in the Gulch, for example. I've been to that complex. I didn't realize that was yours, and I remember thinking it was extremely nice. So I do appreciate the aesthetics. It is a very nice place. I think if we could address a couple of the few issues, I think it's probably what we need if we're serious about Lowry Street revitalization, which we put a lot of time and a lot of money. Kevin, I know you've made several renditions of the design down there over the years. I think we have to have butts in beds, basically. So I still would prefer owner-occupant, but I don't know that that's an option.
Kevin Rigsby, will you come up and talk a little bit about the process? If it's passed tonight, if it's deferred tonight, what then happens?
Well, obviously, if you pass it tonight, it comes up second reading next month with a public hearing, and of course, at that point, you can approve, deny, or defer again, even at that point. I think deferring it tonight that would give them enough time to get that traffic study done. So I think that would probably be the primary reason. I think if you wanted to defer, if you do want to see that traffic study, you could also pass it tonight and
Defer it
on second reading. Still go to the public hearing, which hasn't been advertised in the paper yet, but the surrounding neighbors that we sent letters to have that date and that sort of thing. So, I think that would at least keep the public hearing on the schedule, and then if you decide you really want to see the traffic study before you give that final approval, you could defer it at that point. So.
Council, I think we all still have concerns about the elevators, the connection to the park, the ingress and egress, and the traffic study. Is there anything else?
There's one thing I'd like to bring up, if it's okay, and we talked about this, Kevin, at planning. We talked about the aesthetics of these entranceways, especially the one off Lowry. As you probably are aware, the front of this lays in our historic overlay. And so, to me, it needs to look that way. So, I don't know if that consists of pavers or something coming in down to the roundabout. I don't know what that is. And some sort of entrance way. It doesn't have to be gated. We don't want to gate anything there at Lowry Street. And then the landscape. I know this is just a rendering. That's all this is, and we know that.
Right.
But the way it's showing the design of trees along the street and trees inside the complex, I think those are things that they gotta be important. I mean, whatever we do, we heard this comment from several of our members yesterday in that meeting was, and I think Mayor just said it, we've got one chance to get this right. And I don't think we're all convinced yet that it's right. I don't know that. I don't speak for them, but sat up here and listened, and I just don't think all of us anyway, are sure it's right. So I kind of agree with Mayor's comment about, maybe you do want to take a little time, get your traffic study back. I don't know. It's up to you guys, but I'm going to put it back on you to talk about that or do what you want.
Well, I would say, Mark, it's a great comment and concern. And I really would encourage you guys to look at some of the projects that I've done and some of the projects that Wood Partners has done. But you can look right here in Middle Tennessee at some of the projects that I've done, and you're going to see that none of them lack aesthetic quality.
Yeah, and I'm not saying that.
Yeah,
but most of what you've done is not in a historic overlay.
Right. Well, and I understand and
That's
agree
my
with that.
question.
And I just, it doesn't benefit me to not try to make it a great project and make it look like this or better.
I think we're looking for a look.
Right. And I understand that the situation that you guys are in, you kind of may not be exactly what you want, but hopefully me coming down here and talking to you and standing here.
We do appreciate that.
It's my job, and then I want you guys to know that, it's me, right? And it's the consultants that I hire and that I'm pushing along, and again, it's something that I want to be proud of because I don't plan to go anywhere. I hope this is a very successful project for my company, obviously, but the town of Smyrna.
Well, and you used a word as you were going through this that I think is a word we've used quite often, and that's partnership. and I do consider this a partnership between your company and our community, and it's one that we're kind of having to go on a little bit of faith. I mean, you know,
Sure.
we don't personally know you. We can look at some of your other projects and things like that, but it definitely is a partnership, and one that we want for years to come. But with the questions that we've kind of talked about tonight, I'm just going to ask you, here's the thing. We can take a vote on it tonight. It may get voted down. That means it has to be brought back. Does it have to go back to Planning Commission at that point?
Yes.
So it would have to go back to planning at that point. Or we can, and it may pass, and if it passes, it goes on to second reading. When it goes to second reading, then there is a public hearing. And at that point is when the public will then be able to come and speak for or against the items. Or we can defer it. You can find out the answers to some of these questions that might make some of council feel a little bit more comfortable with the project, or council may feel comfortable with the project now. I don't know. But I'm going to leave that up to you and let you decide.
Okay.
If you want us to take a vote on it or you want to defer it.
Well,
I'm assuming that he can choose to defer it at this point?
Yes, he can ask to defer.
For defer it.
Ultimately, it's up to you to
Right.
decide, but I understand what you're doing.
is it an option to?
Will you come to the mic, just so
I'm
that they
sorry.
can, I'm sorry, just so people on TV can hear it?
Sure. Is there an option where we can potentially have it approved and then subject to, like we talked about, and then deferred at the second reading? And the only reason I say that is, obviously, I have people that I answer to, and in order for me to continue to spend tens of thousands of dollars, I got to show a little bit of positive
thing.
momentum here.
Okay.
So is that something is that a
We
possible outcome?
we can defer it after first reading, before second reading, if we see that the answers to the questions are not answered to our satisfaction. Can he choose to defer it at that point too, or council can?
Council can.
Council can.
I think he can as well, but
Yeah.
Which
He can
means-
ask us to do that.
yes.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Which means he's going to spend tens of thousands of dollars during that process time anyway.
Well, it's the chance to spend the money. If I go back and say we got deferred, and, that they may say, well, let's just, maybe your time is better
Yeah,
spent
we
somewhere
understand.
else.
We know how it works.
Yeah.
Okay, so,
What does he want us to do?
Subject to what? Now it's time to make a list, correct?
Yeah, that was where I was going, is, it sounded like, what I was hearing was, things like elevators were going to be reviewed and discussed amongst you and your, I guess, stakeholders, and see if it's something you can do.
so elevators
Yeah, but
in
if
all
we-
buildings.
Right, it would be, I think the motion would have to include the elevators.
Not only elevators, but connection to the park. Traffic study. What else?
Clarify the bus stops. We need that clarified. I mean, we need to know they'll go in there, otherwise we got a hot mess right there.
Ingress and egress, which I guess will be kind of taken care of during traffic study. Anything else?
Entrance design. And I trust him that he does good work, but again, I want to remind everybody, this is part of our historic overlay, so.
Did I read in something I got in the last day or so that in your, when you made the changes to the parking and buildings, that you also changed the front facade of the building that faced Lowry Street?
No, I don't think that was part of it. I think maybe what Kevin was speaking to is just our plan to activate Lowry Street is to use storefront glass, which gives it the commercial look and kind of the live-work feel. But no, we didn't change anything.
Okay.
So do you understand what our concerns are? You have them?
I do have the list, yes, ma'am.
Not
Okay.
trying to be difficult.
No.
I promise.
Well,
We just
look,
want a good product if we're going to go this.
if I were sitting in your seat, I would be doing
We have a
the
lot of
exact
people to
same
answer
thing.
to, and
That's right.
I want to do that
You want to get it right.
appropriately, yes.
Absolutely.
I did have one more question. The 42 feet versus 40 feet, is that going to be all buildings, or is it just the ones along the street that you need the extra 2 feet for?
The overlay?
Yeah, they're
Or
one of
the
the
height
exceptions,
overlay.
yeah, one of the exceptions was the height, and I just was curious.
The 42 feet was activated, that request was activated due to the 2-foot elevation we need to add at Lowry Street. But I think we'd like the flexibility through the whole project. It just allows for the room for them. There's a lot they do on that first floor that actually, is just improving the product. So
Okay.
we'd like that flexibility to extend the whole project.
The driving
if we can.
factor was essentially the depot look on
Yes,
the
sir.
on that front building.
Correct.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sure.
So you said that, I have a question not related to that, but you said that you were out in the community today, and you were able to receive 17 names of citizens that approved this. Were they the ones that are neighboring the
No.
project?
Well, not today. I have talked to one neighbor who reached out to me that is contiguous to this property, and we talked through the project, and I might have brought the email, but it was great. This is exactly what I've been looking forward to. So I don't think I printed it out. But the 17 names that we got in support today, really it was simply walking around the town square and saying, hey, would you be in support of an apartment rental community in that field over there, because we think it'll help to revitalize this town square.
Have we reached out to the other neighbors that are adjacent to this project on the backside?
Some, but not all.
And were the others, besides the one that you got the email, were they also positive about the project?
No, I have not received, other than Miss Della and Miss Paulette, really any kind of negative feedback. And like I said, I made the attempt to kind of sit down and work through, tell me your concerns and let me try to fix them. So,
Right. But you haven't spoken to any of the other adjacent
no,
neighbors?
the only communication we've had with them, I guess, is us sending out public notices, which,
Yeah.
have they gone out yet?
That will happen with the
Okay.
public
Yeah, so
hearing.
no.
Okay.
Okay.
Question for Kevin Rigsby, where'd he go?
He's hiding.
Kevin,
Yes.
just a outside long shot question. Could this ever connect over to Gracie Avenue? It'd take a lot of work and money, I think. wouldn't it?
I think they're,
No, not Avenue, Gracie Lane.
Gracie Lane, I'm sorry.
yeah, I think it possibly could. There would take a tremendous amount of improvement to that road to make it happen, because
Could you kind of point where that would be on?
it's right here.
Is that a dedicated street? I was under the impression it wasn't.
I don't know if it's a public street or not. It's a very narrow street. I mean, it's not much more than one lane.
30-foot right of way is dedicated to the town.
It is.
So 30 feet right away.
So just throwing that out there.
Just as you're looking at stuff,
Yeah,
you might
I
want to
mean-
look at that.
I'm sorry, I missed the question. I was talking to Kevin.
There's another street in this area right here. It's a small and narrow street.
So is Main Street as
Which is,
well.
yeah,
We're just looking
it's
for other
even more
options
narrow
in
than
there.
Main
Yeah,
Street, but
that street, actually, if you carry it on across Maple, becomes Oak, and Oak goes all the way to Sam Davis.
right.
So it could be a
If
back
you're not going
exit
into town.
over to Sam Davis Road.
But you wouldn't really be affecting any
Straight,
homes,
yeah,
Right there,
would you?
yes.
Well, Oak Street would.
There are a few houses, I
Are
think,
there?
that do
Okay.
access Gracie Lane,
Okay.
yeah.
Well, just
That's just
an idea.
Something I think.
something to ponder, because, yeah, better fixes are better fixes if that works. Maybe it's a way to look at that and say,
You may even be able to come off of that existing parking lot, just kind of make a S-curve over there or something.
that kind of takes traffic out the back
Just another option, right?
and
Yeah.
sends whoever may want to go over to Nissan, for example, or somewhere over in that area, they could go right down Sam Davis. Anyway, just a
Okay.
wild question, that's all.
Any other questions or comments?
Just a question. When we look at the detention area, or what do they call it, stormwater management area up there?
Right.
Do you anticipate that holding water, or would it be usable in dry times?
At this point, we've just
You
kind of
and I
looked at.
started off together in recreation, so you know where I'm going with this.
Yes, sir. Looking at the property, we've just looked at the concept of where the drainage goes, making sure we leave room for the town to get their drainage project out. We don't anticipate a retention wet pond, if you will. We didn't anticipate that being part of the stormwater structures. We anticipated more a typical retention where it would be relieved within 24 hours. But we do think it's, valuable green space, if you will, around the project.
He's asking you to put a soccer park there. That's what he's asking.
One more wouldn't hurt.
Okay. Any other questions or comments? Jeff, knowing that the concerns that we listed, is the motion best made with these questions being answered by second reading? What will be the best?
I think you're fine with just that you've heard our concerns, which, you mentioned the elevators, traffic study, connection to the park, ingress, egress, all of these concerns that can be found within the minute. And that, if you choose to pass it with that these are our concerns, know that going into the second reading. Second reading will stand totally on its own if you decide not to approve those answers.
Okay. Then, do I have a motion to approve with the concerns being noted that the council currently has? Anything else? Okay. Do I have a motion?
Didn't you just make one?
No, I said, do I have a motion?
I'll make that motion.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Discussion. Roll call vote, Ms. Diane.
Councilman Cole, how do you vote?
Yes, ma'am.
Councilwoman Morrell?
Yes.
Councilwoman Peebles?
No.
Councilman Short?
Yes.
Councilman Sullivan?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Atkins?
No.
Mayor Reed?
Yes. Motion passes. We ask that you look at our concerns and try to have those brought back before second reading. I think that may play into how second reading goes. Okay?
Thank
We
you
look
guys for
forward
your
to the
time.
partnership.
Opportunity.
Thank you.
Partnership. Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Item 4, under new business, is consideration of an ordinance relative to the rezoning of property located on tax map 28, part of parcel 67.01, containing approximately 2.83 acres, requested by Jarrett Bell to go from C2 to C2 with an H2 overlay. The property is located on Potomac Place, and this is a first reading. Kevin?
Yes, this, Mayor and Council, this is a request to add the height overlay to this part of this parcel. This is a future lot on Potomac Place that has not currently been divided. Land use plan would support commercial development here. The surrounding zoning is a mix of R6 and C2. This would add a H2 height overlay to the property to allow for a 5-story, 102-room courtyard by Marriott Hotel. This would exceed the maximum height allowed in the C2 district, which is 40 feet. The zoning, again, it's 40 feet is what's allowed. The hotel would have a total height of 59 feet. The height to the top of the occupied space would be 54 feet. The Planning Commission did review this and recommended approval.
Okay, questions for Kevin or Mark or Tim? You want to chime in a little bit about this?
I don't mind. I actually met with these folks after they came here the first time, because I can't recall, I think they deferred it, didn't we, Kevin, the first time? And the reason was because some of the design we felt like needed to be tweaked. So I met with these folks, and they brought it back, and they listened, and they did a lot of the improvements that we asked for. This is the Marriott's Generation 6 series. This is their newest hotel design. It's got a lot of shadow lighting, and they call it some kind of board. I can't remember what it is, but help me. No. Say it again?
Nichiha and Rieger Oko.
That. There's a lot of that. It's,
You should go with a better name like EFS.
well, that would not be the better name. And I can tell you,
What kind of material are we talking about here?
it's like a fiber board. But you got me off track.
It's a new version of EFS.
Well,
I'm just
and
kidding.
so
I'm just
when
kidding.
we met,
It's not.
when I met with these people after the first deferment, I told him that was going to be a concern, and they came back and tweaked a lot of that. So I didn't mean to use the word tweak, by the way, but they
It's
did.
twitch.
And there's a lot of glass and lighting and things that are the predominant material use on this property. Tim, you got anything you want to add there?
No, I mean, I think you covered it very well, that this is a signature look for this, and this is the, it's the next generation for the hotel.
And I think it was exactly what we were looking for when we were looking at moving Potomac.
Yeah, we couldn't possibly ask for a better return on the investment for what we did right there at Potomac. It's pretty quick.
They listened, is my point. They took constructive criticism and did all they could with a corporate product to try to meet the town's needs.
So do we have a motion?
I'll move to approve.
Second.
A motion, a second. Any discussion?
I have one question.
Sure.
So I know at the planning commission, one of the things that was looked at was the parking lots, the spacing. Was that one of the things that was addressed, Mark, when you met with them?
Kevin, you could speak to that. We talked about that at great length.
Yeah, we did talk about they are meeting our requirements for parking. There was a concern from one of the planning commission members about event space and would there be a lot of kind of non-guests coming to there for events. And they basically, if they host events there, the rooms are tied to it. So they don't expect there to be any of that kind of.
There's really no convention or meeting space.
Right, it's smaller, more conference room type
Meeting
event
conference kind of
space.
stuff.
Not
Well, we did
large.
talk about it. It's a good question, yeah.
Not large event space like you might see,
One of our
Conference.
planning members actually is in that industry, and so he was the one that brought up that question, which was very good. And I don't know that I thought of it, but having somebody sit on the panel that has that background, I thought it was a great question.
Was there any issue with fire equipment?
No.
I don't believe, no, my interaction with Mr. Lawrence, no, he didn't express anything to me.
I believe there is one representative. Could I ask you a quick question? Could you come to the microphone, please?
Absolutely.
If you'll state your name and address and what group you're with.
Sure. Jarrett Bell, Skyline Hospitality, 2200 Abbott Martin Road in Nashville.
Thank you. Mark had mentioned that this was a new design or a new signature design. Is there a city or an existing one that's been built somewhere in the U.S. that I can see? I was actually Googling your images here, and there's probably 10 different ones, right? So for courtyards.
This exact design, no, sir. There's not one in existence. I did bring a rendering that we had made, if you'd like to see it.
Yeah, maybe after
Okay.
we're done. Yeah, perfect. I was just curious. I was trying to find something that looked like the images we saw, and I didn't really see anything.
Well, the design that you saw, there's a hotel in Winter Park, Florida, I believe it is, that is supposed to reflect this to some degree, but even this design, our architect is still waiting on some actual updates to the prototype. Literally over the past 2 weeks, we've been waiting for it. So our architectural design has been held up slightly just because this is so fresh that Marriott hasn't even finished some of the interior components of the hotel.
Gotcha.
One of the neat things, just to add on to that, 'cause that's another good question, but one of the neat things is if you look at the rendering we have, if you look at the right elevation there, off to the left, you see those white slatted lines. Those are actually backlights. So at night, this will have a nice curb appeal to it.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
I actually pulled up Winter Park here, so thank you.
Other questions or comments?
Does the gas line parallel this piece of property?
Yes. Yeah, that the eastern part of this property that's kind of beyond the parking area, this is gas easement here.
Where do we anticipate Jenny Lane intersecting with Potomac over there?
Probably this area right here, right on that side of the opposite side of the gas line from the hotel.
We looked at all that when they came in
Yes.
when they were looking at that. Other questions or comments? We have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Item 5 is consideration of an ordinance relative to the amendment of the text of the Smyrna Municipal Zoning Ordinance to amend Article 3, Section 3.1000, accessory use regulations. This is a first reading. Kevin?
Now, this is just a text amendment to the ordinance regarding detached accessory buildings. It would basically add an additional category or lot of parcel size to where for parcels that are larger than 5 acres could have a larger structure. It's already allowed if that use is agricultural in nature, but if it's not, any property or any parcel or property that exceeds 3 acres is limited to 1,500 square feet. This would keep that 1,500 square feet if it's 3 acres up to 5, but for parcels larger than 5, you could have 2,400 square feet. We also had some other language I was changing in there just to kind of clarify. There's a little bit of ambiguity on some of it, so we kind of cleared that up as well. So there's some words to be removed as well as words to be added. So, and that is on the attached with your packet as well. Planning Commission did review this and did recommend approval.
Questions for Kevin? Do I have a motion?
Move to approve.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Any comments or discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Item 6 is consideration of an ordinance relative to the amendment of the text of the Smyrna Municipal Zoning Ordinance to amend Article 2, Section 2.020 definitions to change the definition of alternative financial services by adding the words industrial loan and thrift to the definition. This is a first reading.
Yes, Mayor and Council, this is one that was discussed briefly at the last council workshop. This would just amend the definition to add those 4 words, and it's basically what this would have the effect of doing is include businesses that are doing that type of loan would fall under the alternative financial services definition, and then would then therefore have to meet the distance requirements that those uses are required to meet under our ordinance.
Questions for Kevin on this? Do we have a motion?
Motion to approve.
Second?
Second.
I do have a question on this. Because they don't require a business license, some of these businesses, how are we going to find them prior to them getting moved in and not kind of have the same situation? I mean, and maybe there's not a good answer.
They have to have a state license, they don't have to have a local license. Unless they come in and do any renovations and have to have permitting, it's just subject to us finding them.
Okay? Jeff, from a legal standpoint, if they come in, they put money in, they don't have to have a business license, they choose not to call the city to find out what requirements are in the city, which I think is bad business on their part for not finding out. If they move in to a building, we then will have the right to say to them, you are not in compliance and they have to move. Is that correct?
Yes, we'd file an injunction with the court to
Okay.
remove them, but hopefully, I think, we can try to catch the list from the state, when it comes down and, try to look at that anytime anyone calls about, any new business, I think we can always continue to keep looking for those types of businesses, stick out, make sure our employees know to stick out.
Well,
That's about all we can do, I think.
well, and I don't even remember if Steve and Raquel were on the council or Jerry when we did this. We worked really, really hard and we're one of the first in the state and maybe the first in regards to getting things on the books when it comes to alternative financial services. Spacing them out.
Yeah.
I mean, our hands are a little bit tied because the state won't do anything about it. And so we did step up and do something.
We were the second city.
Right, the second city,
One thing
okay?
I was just thinking is, most of these businesses, I think, would have to come in, or would come in for a sign permit. So maybe we just need to make sure we're socializing it with all of our permit offices, that, hey, we're looking for these type of
That was
businesses.
my point, unless they come in and get a permit or anything. Yeah.
Right.
That's the only way we're gonna catch them.
I think we'll have our staff, yeah, we'll have
In
to
the
do a job
different
of getting our
departments.
staff to the point.
Alert to that.
Looking for that, because the guys were writing us sign permits today probably just look at the ordinance for the sign, right? They don't
And
really think
we've
about
had
the type
people
of
come in and
business.
change a sign without a sign permit.
That's the other issue, they don't always get a permit.
Right, you
So,
know, if there's already existing sign and all they're doing is changing out the face,
Yeah, that-
especially in a strip center or something.
they don't always
Many
get a
times they
permit.
don't.
Doesn't sound like there's any way to get them 100%, but I'm just suggesting that there's,
Or we're looking
There
for
might
every
be-
opportunity to make sure that we
Well,
catch these.
I guess what I'm challenging council is if we are legally within our rights going forward, I just hope that we have enough backbone to make sure that even if a business has moved in, they're in there, they're doing business, if they're not supposed to be there, I want us to be able to stand up because this group of businesses were ones we were concerned about. And so I just want to make sure, especially the new ones, understand how hard we fought to make that happen with these alternative financing services businesses.
Well, a lot of that too, Mayor, has a lot to do with our Lowry Street idea. I mean, there's been a lot of that on Lowry, as we all know.
Yep.
And so we did work hard on that. We did all that I think we were legally allowed to do without any kind of state support. So,
Well, and I think sometimes citizens don't understand that if a business is zoned for an area, we don't have a lot of choice as to what a
We don't always.
landlord
we don't get to
can
change
and
it.
can't allow. And so it can be frustrating for us. There are ones we wouldn't like to see coming in certain places as well. But I think this is one that we worked really hard on, and I'm glad to see that we are looking at moving forward with adding this group to this type of business, so.
I think, without naming anything, I think we had one exception that kind of spawned this conversation. This would not affect them, or would they be impacted once we pass this?
They will not be impacted by this, but they actually were trying to do the right thing. in
Yeah,
indicating it.
understood, but I think that's what brought it to our attention, that
Yes.
there was a hole.
Correct.
Right, okay.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Item 7 is consideration of a resolution authorizing the acquisition of property by negotiation or condemnation for the purpose of carrying out the Olive Branch Sewer Extension Project. Kevin?
This is of course, you looked at it under your consent agenda, several items regarding this project as well. This is just the resolution, which you talked about it at your workshop as well. This would be for acquiring the easements for the construction of the Olive Branch sewer main. The Planning Commission did review this as they're required to do as a mandatory referral. They did find it consistent with the long-range plan of the town, and they did recommend approval of it.
Questions for Kevin? This is going to change a lot of things for us, so. Do I have a motion?
Motion to approve.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Motion is second. Any discussion?
How many force mains will be along this line?
Once the trunk main's installed, we'll abandon 4 lift stations.
We don't have to push any over from Montgomery Way or anything like that?
Yes, sir, that's what we're doing now. There's a lot of gravity lines that will go to Montgomery Way and to Woodmont 6. That pushes over the ridge and then that dumps into the trunk along Rock Springs Road.
Okay, I got
Yeah,
you.
so
But
we'll-
this one will have none on it, it's completely gravity flow.
Yes, sir, that's the whole point. This thing will be 100% gravity, so.
Very good. There were just some places where it looked like it moved way away from the stream bed, and I didn't know if that may require one or not.
I worked with Jerome on that, and we buck grade a couple places so that we could maintain gravity through that entire area.
Thank you, sir.
Okay.
As you'll notice as well, we're saving some money due to Mike and Mr. Hercules. They chose a different route As you noticed with what we approved earlier, it went from 107,000 to 66,000 just because we went from 62 to 38 tracks, which will also affect our appraisals and everything.
Other questions or comments? We have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Item B is a packaged liquor board report. There were no applications for the town council to consider at this time. Item C is the announcement of submission of the public debt notice to the comptroller of the treasury. Hey,
Mayor and
Rich.
council, the comptroller requires public debt incurred by the town to be announced at a public meeting. This requires no council action, just the mayor's signature. I have attached Form CT-0253 related to the $18 million general obligation bond issue, and it will be submitted to the Office of State and Local Finance.
Questions for Rex on this? Thanks for the announcement, Rex. Item D is approval of the terms of and authorization for the mayor to execute a contract with Premier Fence LLC relative to the fence installation at 56 Lowry Street. Hey, Mike.
Thank you, Mayor, Council. This is the area Tire World used to sit on, and we had bid this back in July 23rd of this year, and 4 contractors submitted bids with Premier Fence being the lowest responsible bidder. We did allow a approved equal, and if you look across the bid tab, that's probably why you see a little bit of difference in the prices there. But the approved equal was a different type fence than what's down there, but it looks the same. I think the only difference was the distance between some of the pickets was maybe a 1/4 inch, so you really won't know the difference, but it will save the town some money. We looked at that, and while looking at the bid tab, we noticed that the warranty was very strong in the substitute fence with a 12-year material warranty with a 5-year labor, and we felt like that was a pretty good deal. As you can see, it's 360 feet of fence there for $14,635.
Questions for Mike on this? I can't get over what a difference opening up that has done for
Yes, ma'am.
looking over at Front Street and all that, so. Do I have a motion?
Motion to approve?
Do I have a second? Second. Motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Item E is appointment of one member of the Arts Commission to serve an unexpired term ending in 2021. Raquel, you chaired this committee, and so I am going to look to you for a recommendation.
Okay, we did have a couple of names that submitted, and so we looked at Robin Blackwell.
Okay? So, all in favor of Robin Blackwell, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Congratulations, Robin Blackwell. You will serve an unexpired term ending in 2021. And who is your city person that would be getting in touch with them? Oh, Melissa. So Melissa will get in touch with Robin. So Robin, be looking for Melissa to get in touch with you to let you know when your next meeting will be. We do have, I know two things under other. The first is approval of the terms of and authorization for the mayor to execute a letter of agreement with the state of Tennessee to accept a $75,000 community grant relative to a playground for children with disabilities. I think Governor Lee put this in his budget, didn't he?
Sure did, and we got a letter. I know Rex received a letter, and I've talked to Brian about the timing of putting this on the council agenda, and we wanted to put that under other. We didn't want to slow this down. But we did receive a letter stating that, and the town is obviously partnering with the Rotary Club to build a all-inclusive playground at Lee Victory Recreation Park. The state of Tennessee has budgeted a direct appropriation grant of $75,000 to the town for the playground. So basically, this will be a flow-through through the town for the park, for the improvement of the park, the all-inclusive playground to Rotary. So in order to receive the funds, we have to agree to this letter, which stated the conditions inside the letter, which is in your packet.
Questions for Mike on this?
You're looking for a vote to accept money.
How often does that happen?
It's a pass-through of money
Yeah.
from the state through the town to the Rotary development of this special needs park.
Okay, do I have a motion?
Move to approve.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Motion is second. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Yeah, I was trying to confirm the ribbon cutting for that. 22nd. Yep, at 11 o'clock.
Yes, sir.
August.
Okay.
Yep.
11 o'clock, that's a Thursday, and it'll be at the park site.
Okay. You said you have one
Yes,
other
ma'am.
under other, and I think we have that on our desk in front of us. I
No,
think-
no, you don't.
Okay.
That's something else.
Okay.
I do have something that I want to ask permission under other. We talked about this yesterday a little bit at our special call meeting. We have an opportunity on a piece of property off of Lake Farm and Nissan Drive, working with BGS America LLC. Some of you may remember that's the remaining business of Mr. Spivey. We're looking for some property to help us with detention of some water issues that we have off of Lake Farm and Nissan. Working with Barry Royal, who represents BGS America LLC, we've come up with a piece of property at the end of Nolan Drive in I'm going to mess that up. Imperial, I want to say Olympic, Imperial Drive, that there's a possibility that we could do a land swap, and I think it's in the best interest of the town to do this. What I would like to ask permission from the council is for us to have the ability for Jeff and I to negotiate that and bring it back to council as a possible deal to improve the property for us and also for BGS America LLC.
Do I have a motion for Brian and Jeff to negotiate this with BGS?
I'll make the motion to give them permission to do so.
A motion, do we have a second?
Second.
Motion is second. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes.
Thank you.
Status reports. Ms. Diane, anything?
I have nothing.
Brian?
Yes, Mayor and Council, I have just a couple of things real quick. I did want to point out that on August the 27th at the depot, from 5:30 to 7:30 p.m., we'll be conducting an ADA compliance public meeting. I'd like to invite you to come out, and we've put information out for the community, and I know Tom Rose is working with some of the citizens with disabilities to have them come in and also give us some input on our ADA compliance for the town. So if you'll mark your calendar, August the 27th, 5:30 to 7:30 at the depot. Also, just a very quick announcement, our United Way of Rutherford County recognizes a Volunteer of the Month every month. Just so happens this month was a gentleman by the name of Tim Slate that we all might know, and a great partner with us and one of our Nissan employees, and has done a great job representing the town of Smyrna and Nissan with the United Way, so I did want to point that out.
I'm glad you pointed that out because I didn't know that. And so for those of you that don't know, whenever Mama cooks on Sundays, we have Sunday celebrations where you get awards for anything you've done since we've eaten from the Sunday before.
I have
And
a copy.
Tim does not get many awards, so Tim will be excited. We can give
And I
him
brought
an award.
a printed copy so you could have it,
Perfect.
Mayor.
I will send that to Mama so she can.
Coal or anything like that if you haven't?
No,
Because I'm just wondering how you would have fared.
I always get an award
Okay.
every time.
Did want to point out also, if I could move on, we've talked a little bit about it with the Marriott project that's come in, but Potomac Drive is now completed. We're moving towards substantial completion. There's a few things on the punch list. Tom and I were talking about, I think they're going to do some remilling on one of the lanes coming out to Sam Ridley that's got a little bit of a ripple in it, so we're going to go ahead and get that fixed while they're out there. The mast arms have been ordered. They may be here by Christmas next year.
Steve, did you
I know
hear
she's
that?
laughing.
Oh, Steve didn't hear that.
I said everything is completed with the exception of the mast arms, which have been ordered. It'll take a little while to get those.
They've been ordered several places around town. We still
Yes,
haven't got them.
we're working on it.
I'm not even sure anyone actually makes these mast arms.
Trust me, they're coming.
Business opportunity.
I've been saying that. We should be building mast arms in the town of Smyrna and selling them all around the country.
And we should. Our next workshop, we will have a road update. It's time for our quarterly road update, so that'll be at 4 o'clock. We'll have that, Ms. Diane will get that in the paper for us and get it advertised. But make council aware of the next workshop, we will have a 4 o'clock road update. The last thing I have on my list, this is something we don't normally do. We have a very special time of the year at Christmas that we recognize our employees for years of service. But just so happens tonight, we have a gentleman sitting in the back room to the right that tomorrow celebrates 30 years of service to the town of Smyrna, and that's Chief Kevin Arnold. And I didn't want to recognize that. I think he deserves a round of applause.
Chief, I don't think Mayor was even born yet.
I was getting ready to say that.
Somebody told me that you did traffic control on the Ark when they brought the animals off. So,
I think I scored 2 points right there.
I was told I had to say that, so I'm just pointing that out. But Chief does a great job for us, and we're very, very blessed to have him and his 30 years of experience here with the town of Smyrna, and I do appreciate it.
Yep. Great.
That's all I have, Mayor.
Thanks. Jeff?
I have nothing.
Raquel?
I have nothing to say.
HG?
I would like to wish a true Southern lady a happy birthday today. Miss Margie Hernandez's birthday is today. She's been in Smyrna as long as I can remember, and I've traveled with her. She was quite interesting. We went to Costa Rica with her one time. It was epic. But happy birthday, Miss Margie.
Tim?
Just want to say, as I was coming in, I saw several officers out in the middle of the storm directing traffic with signals out, and I know Chief Culberson was also mentioning some limbs and trees down, and I know that we had our Public Works folks out as well, so I just want to send my appreciation and gratitude for them all to be out in the middle of a storm like this and working hard to make sure that we stayed safe and things kept working.
Would agree. Jerry?
Nothing.
Steve?
Nothing.
Mark?
A few things. Recently, a Smyrna native, friend of some of ours, Charles Huggins, passed away this past week. That's, I knew Mark and Wayne and Kent, some of those guys, and they lost their dad today, or this week, and so I just want to give our condolences to them as a long-standing member of Smyrna. Some of our older generations leaving us, and it's sad to see, but thinking of the family. Teachers, back to school, thank you for what you do. I know traffic's a nightmare right now around town, especially in the mornings and the afternoons, but my wife's involved in this part of a career, and I understand how hard it is when they work as hard as they do. I just want to give a special thanks to them. We were at Rock Springs Elementary, some of us, and we cut the ribbon on that a week ago Sunday, and so I don't think we've met since then, but I wanted to say congratulations to Rocky Fork Elementary. And Brian, you see that's Rocky Fork, not Rock Fork. And Rock Springs is not Rocky Springs. Okay, just make it.
I
Okay.
actually have flashcards that I use.
Imperial is not Olympia.
Brian don't know where he's having to head half
I
the
can
time.
get there, I just can't tell you how I got there.
And speaking of getting there, somewhere around $30 million in road projects is being spent around town right now. So please be patient. I know we don't get to time all these with school and everything. Some of these are state projects, they're governed in that way, but we are trying our darndest to make roads around town a little bit easier to maneuver, and with the ITS system we've got on the way, we think it'll help a whole lot. So for those of you out there driving in this traffic, we drive in it too. It's a lot of money being spent right now around the town of Smyrna. For those of you who are investing in the town of Smyrna, thank you, because it helps us reach some of those goals. I'm going to let the mayor talk about a couple things. I just want to give a simple congratulations to her dad and her mom and dad, and I'm going to let her touch on that. But today's a special day, right? Anniversary time. Yesterday. So yeah. I'll let you do that. And last little thank you I want to give. I always like to kind of shock people a little bit with a thank you. And so Diane, tonight's your night. I want to thank you and your team back there for doing what you do. I mean, it's like you just sit over there quietly all the time. You come to our meetings and you sit there quietly and you just do your thing. But there's a team back there in that office, and I like to let them know that we appreciate them. I think they know that, but saying it publicly is always a good thing to lift the morales up of people. So just want to give them a shout out tonight. Yeah. And with that, I am done, Mayor.
Okay. I just have a couple of items. The Senior Activity Center Spaghetti Dinner will be Saturday night at 100 Rake Street. They'll have baked spaghetti, salad, bread, drink, and dessert. Adults are $15. Senior activity members are $10. Children under 10 are $5. They will have lunch and dinner. Lunch will be from 11 to 2 and dinner from 4:30 to 7:30. Proceeds to benefit the Senior Activity Center of Smyrna, and you can dine in or carry out. And I will tell you, it is a great meal, so don't miss that. I would agree. That's right. Next, we got this today. The Smyrna High School Quarterback Club First Responders Night is going to be Friday, August 23rd. There will be free admission for first responders with their ID card, police, fire, EMT, and 911 operators. The first 100 responders will receive a free First Responders Night t-shirt and refreshments under the end zone tent, and the game starts at 7 p.m. Don't forget our Depot District Barbecue Fest, which will take place Saturday, August 24th from 6 to 9. You can enjoy some great barbecue, live music, and some great fun at the Depot District Barbecue Fest. I can't believe we're already talking about this, but the 45th Annual Smyrna Christmas Parade will take place on Sunday, December 1st at 2 p.m. People of all ages can gather along Lowry Street in anticipation of the arrival of the floats, bands, classic cars, riding clubs, dancers, and of course Santa as they glide down Lowry Street towards Sam Ridley Parkway. This year's theme is A Tennessee Christmas. Entry forms are available at Town Hall or on our town website. The entry deadline is Wednesday, November 27th. We do have cash prizes for 4 entries: the Mayor's Cup at $150, Most Creative at $100, and Best Use of Theme at $100, as well as Best Christmas Spirit. If you have any questions about the parade or entry application, you can contact the parade committee, which is Jill Strange. So by email or call her, and we have her number on the town website. Also, don't forget, if you are participating in the parade or just coming out to watch the parade, one of the things we started a couple years ago was collecting food for our food bank. Last year, we collected
A lot.
I can't, over 22,000.
And I want to go on record right now that I am challenging you, Mayor, individually.
Oh, he got you first? That's
Yeah,
fine.
yes.
He did.
Individually, not collectively as a council, one-on-one, I challenge you, I will match everything you donate personally.
I'll take that challenge. I'm glad you got a raise. Okay, it's on, it's on.
Can she receive donations?
No, this has got to come out of her pocket.
Okay.
Your dad helped?
No, because I cannot afford to go against Convictory.
What about Parker or Brett?
No, this is a mano a mano.
He's not going to tell you.
I don't know if you realize that.
You just
our mayor
set yourself
cheats.
up.
No, I'm not.
Okay, I will take that, I'll take that bet. So our Smyrna Farmers Market, a reminder to visit, they are open every Saturday from 8 to 12, and the market will run through September 14th. And,
Can I say something about that?
Sure.
They actually have food out there now. Chick-fil-A has been out there, and there's been Mexican and Chinese vendors that are out there along with the actual vendors selling food. Yes.
Great. I had this down under you, but I guess, do you want to do it?
I wasn't going to announce that yet.
Oh, so let me skip that. Got it. Okay. So a couple of other things. I know I sent you guys a text, but I want to thank you all. For those of you who don't know, my side gig or my real job is a teacher's supply store in Murfreesboro, and so it has been pretty busy since 4th of July. And you all always pick up the slack for me and are willing to do ribbon cuttings or meetings or anything else, and I really appreciate all you all do. It does take a team to make this job work, and I really can't tell you how much I appreciate all y'all have done to help during that time. We have not been together since the Seafood Fest on Friday night at the Event Center. It was huge success, 500.
A little under 500.
Little under 500 people, and if you missed it, you missed a great meal. We had our employee appreciation last Friday night, and council did a great job in cooking for the employees, and I think that they had a great time while they were there. It was nice seeing the kids all enjoying the pool and some of the adults enjoying the pool, but it was just nice to be able to sit around and talk. We don't always get to do that day in and day out, and so it was a nice night had by all. I did want to talk a little, we've talked a lot tonight about the meeting we had yesterday. Do you want to talk a little bit about some of the things that came out of that meeting? Do you want me to do that?
I'll be happy to talk about it.
Sure.
We did meet with the council. You know, we've got a lot of development going on in our community, and we've had some issues that I think are just really can be chalked up to misinterpretation or miscommunication between the council members, the planning commission, and the staff on some of the things we're doing on some of the PUDs and those kind of things. So really, we sat down yesterday with the council to talk about those. We will be working on some guidelines that we will use going forward. Some of the things we talked about was the setbacks. We've been talking about doing some 5-foot setbacks in certain locations and stuff. We don't feel like that's accommodating for some of the fire protection and some of those kind of things we're doing. So we'll be looking at those, and we'll be making recommendations to the council. I would say we probably will have those ready in the next 30 days that we'll bring forward based on our conversations yesterday. So, but we do appreciate the council giving us direction. You know, it's important for us, and I think, you know, the way I approach this with you is, as a council and the mayor, is we have an opportunity to make Smyrna what we think it needs to be and what we have a vision for it to be. And while we looked at some of our surrounding communities, that was not the guiding light to say we've got to be like everybody else. We want to make sure that Smyrna offers a product, offers an opportunity to have a quality of life that meets everybody's expectations. And we want to transform Smyrna to also be affordable for all opportunities in that housing market, whether it's first-time home buyers all the way up through $1 million+ homes. So that's kind of our guide.
I think it was beneficial for all involved. We had quite a few developers that were there as well, and we talked about street width. We talked about with
Setbacks.
families like they are today and needing to be able to get more cars in on a lot, those sorts of things. So I think we had a lot of good input.
And we do appreciate the people that are invested that way. I mean, our development partners, our business partners,
Absolutely.
these are all the people that are going to help us reach that goal, if you will. I got one question, and I've thought about this, and I haven't been able to talk to you about it. I know that we got Chief Culberson to kind of look at these setbacks and so forth, which is great. I think it's a good idea. I don't know if Chief Arnold has been.
He did.
Have you talked to him?
Yes.
Okay.
I had both.
I'm wondering about that dynamic that we talked about. And
yes, I had a document from both of them outlining some of it, and I brought some of those things to the table off of both pages.
Okay, all right.
Yes.
I didn't hear, I guess, any of that portion of it, and.
They were very similar. Parking, some of those kind of things were very.
I just don't know if
very
it
generic.
changes the dynamic of traffic,
No.
speeding, or putting cars on the street by design. Can that create any kind of crime issues or whatever? I'd just like to know he weighed in, that's all.
Okay, last thing, actually two things. Want to wish Mom and Dad a happy 52nd wedding anniversary. It was yesterday, so they are great role models, and I think they had a really nice day. And Brian, I think the last thing, I think a couple of us are having some computer issues. You saw
heard you talking about that,
yesterday,
yes.
but I think Raquel is, are you still HG?
Just when I try to get on the town cloud, sometimes I have to sign out and sign back in, is all that is.
Okay,
So
so
if you'll
can
get
we-
those, if you'll bring your
iPads.
iPads by my office, we'll get them over to IT and get them
Great.
looked at for you.
I
Be happy
think
to
they're
do so.
working, mine's working, but I have the same problem Mayor does. I get to a certain point and it just immediately scrolls back to the top.
Okay.
So-
So,
And I
We'll
think Raquel's talked to IT about it.
I spoke with
I'll
Patty,
tell
she
y'all,
said
if
she was
you'll
gonna work on
download
a fix.
PDF Expert,
yeah, I did
move it
that.
over into there.
That's what Steve was
I mean,
saying.
it's no trouble whatsoever.
Yeah.
So-
Yeah.
I think
Well-
that there is a license for that, and I think that was the last time I talked to Robert about it. He didn't know how many licenses we still had, so there's a cost for PDF Expert.
Whatever it takes, because,
Yeah, that's what I said. Mine's on mine and it's working, so.
okay, anything else to come before this board?
Mayor, I did want to point out one thing. A few minutes ago, somebody asked Mike to come up, and Mark Parker's here tonight representing Mike, and I wanted to make sure you knew why. Mike is actually off work the rest of this week. Jill's having surgery on her foot. I don't think it's anything that's...
It's not her golf cart foot, is it?
It's not her golf cart foot. But she is having some surgery, so Mike is off with her. So I appreciate Mark being here tonight to support us. On
Do you know when the
utility.
surgery is by chance?
I'm not sure.
Tomorrow morning.
Tomorrow morning.
Great.
So,
Okay, then we wish Jill a speedy recovery.
okay.
Anything else? Nothing else, and we are adjourned.